When I started in the business, nobody had a mobile phone. It was new to everybody. And when I started, people said, oh, it's just going to be lawyers and doctors. And now everybody has one and maybe two, and we're building an industry that's going to be even more.
Well, when we first started, we were what they call a toll bypass operator. Back in those days, it was about $1.90 to ring the UK. We had no customers, so we hit the market at 25 cents. We didn't expect Telecom to react within 48 hours. The prices to ring overseas dropped, and then there was a price war for a while, and we got our first big tranche of customers on board.
I always loved tinkering with electronics. When I was very, very young, NEC entered into New Zealand, and they were the ones that put the Earth satellite station up in Warkworth. I joined the post office to start with, became a technician in the post office. NEC walked in the door and I thought, I've got to go there.
After a few years with AT&T, the big, huge corporation in the telecommunications space and a global business at the time, got involved in, went to business school, got involved in a startup. Later on, grew and joined a larger national company that became one of the first national providers in the US.
One of the co-founders, Rod Drury, very, very passionate about broadband and New Zealand's kind of standing in the world. Rod got together with Sam Morgan, and they were kind of, talking to the government about, well, you're spending all this money on ultra-fast broadband, fibre to the home. That's good, but it's not fixing the problem of this other bottleneck, which is, international kind of capacity.
I met the founder of FX, a guy called Roger DeSalis, and he had this dream that every Kiwi at work or at home should have as much bandwidth as they wanted at the best prices in the world. And he thought this idea that the telcos were putting around, that you couldn't do that in New Zealand because our population was too small, it was too thinly spread. He thought that was rubbish.
I just at that stage, a week earlier, resigned from Vodafone. That was public in the paper. Rod saw that and thought, let's grab Mark.
I mentioned earlier, started out with the installation of the Earth satellite station up in Warkworth. Moving on from there, NEC has now moved, globally we're into lots of industries. Anything with technology NEC does.
We kind of likened it to that stage to, imagine if there was only one airline out of New Zealand and how high airline prices would be. And that's the case we've got in New Zealand at the moment. We've got one cable out of New Zealand, and all the traffic goes on that cable up to the US.
I went to South America for a few years, and we did some startups in Central and South America, in Ecuador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Panama. Came back and got involved in a large business that was running a large region in the US. It was a recession, actually, in the industry. And that taught me how to really focus on operations, and you worry about cost cutting, and you worry about effective processes and effective, more efficient management.
At the time, you had Telecom and Clear, and with Telstra in the market too, were like mating elephants, and you had to kind of avoid being stood on. So you had to be on your toes. If we'd zigged instead of zagged, we could have quite easily been taken out by the big boys, because this was before there was regulation. So there was no Telecommunications Act. It was the Wild West in our industry.
Things I learned along the way is how you build teams and how you create a focus on the customer, because you can get consumed with building, you can get consumed with the technology, but if you don't really focus on the customer at every point and create an organization that focuses on the customer, that's probably the key.
And Roger said, well, listen, why don't you come and run this little company? And we're going to put fibre all around the country. So 5 of us and $5 million, and we said, right, he said, so we're going to take on Telecom. How hard can it be? Why don't you come and run that thing for us? So I did.
So Rod and Sam got together with this idea, and went to the government and said, look, we'd love you to support this. In fact, you should be doing this instead of fibre to the home, and they can't. And the government said, look, it's such a strong proposition, why don't you go do it yourself?